I understand that we talk about Michael Jordan as if you should know exactly what Michael Jordan did. And you're like, oh, yeah, I remember. And we do. You know, so much of his airness is in lore and in memory and in highlights, but there's more to it than that. First thing is this. I have a friend in this business, I won't mention his name, and he used to go around telling people he had a photographic memory. So I pulled him aside one night, and I was like, hey, do you really have a photographic memory? He's like, oh, yeah, I can name a game. I can tell you, I can tell you what happened and who was the leading scorer. I was like, okay, so I name a game. And I was like, well, what color jerseys were they wearing? What kind of shoes were they wearing? What color tie was the head coach wearing? He's like, I don't know any of that. Like, that's what a photographic memory literally is, closing your eyes and you can actually see a highlight or something like it's a photograph, right? A very, very good memory is where you can remember a stat, a moment, a play, a series of plays, how something went down. And that's what LeBron has. I would say that's what a lot of us have. Like in our business, one of the things you need is a really good memory to call upon these things. That's really our job. Our job is to shape your opinion and to support our own, sometimes admit wrong, right? On Mondays, Colin, when he's right, when he's wrong. But it's also to remind you of things that happened in the past in sports. And we're not going to quote chapter and verse of box scores in baseball games, but Michael Jordan is the example, and he is considered the greatest of all time. For me, he's the best basketball player I've ever seen. And what made him the best basketball player is in large part because the type of things that you saw from LeBron James over the weekend. Like, we're going to do this thing, which is kind of annoying. It's factually correct, but it's like, well, in year 17, what did Jordan do? Well, like, he didn't play 17 years. He went to college for 3 years. He took a year and a half off for baseball. He then retired again, and then he came back in his late 30s and played for the Wizards. So it's like, is LeBron the greatest to do it 17 straight years? Fine. Okay, then Jordan's the greatest to retire and come out of it. He had the greatest post-retirement career ever, and the greatest double retirement career ever. Even was with the Wizards when he wasn't in great shape and he's in his late 30s with a bad team, he averaged 20 a game. But what you saw from LeBron over the last two games was what it reminds me of Michael Jordan more so than the championships. Like, I'll give you the last shot for most of us that Michael Jordan actually took, he made. It was against the Utah Jazz. I know he played for the Wizards, but like so many things, I just click and I delete that. I drag it over to the trash. I empty the trash in my mind, because that was one of those. He had built this team. It wasn't a great team. He was just trying to win some games, stoke the competitive fire. This is the last shot that he took as a basketball player. Needing a bucket on the road against Brian Russell. He supposedly held the follow through because he had been short all night. He hits the game winner. But what was lost in that is Jordan also scored on the two previous possessions. And with the game tied and hanging in the balance, he stole the ball from Karl Malone in order to get that last possession. And that's what LeBron was able to do, for me at least. You take yesterday, they're taking on the Clippers, right? Anthony Davis, for the second straight game, wasn't great early in the game. And however it got translated to AD, he seemed to relax. And I would guess that LeBron had some, at least small part in it, right? You got to feel like LeBron's ability to at least attempt. He did a good job on Giannis on Friday. He did a good job when he was guarding. Paul George might have been the best player on the floor for a good portion of yesterday's game, whether it's Paul George or Kawhi Leonard. LeBron did a better job than he'd been doing. He got on the floor to get a loose ball. He tried to take a charge from Marcus Morris. I want to make sure I get my Morrises correct. That was really confusing yesterday. Which Morris is the good Morris? Which Morris does which play for? But those little things that got his team extra possessions, the defensive stops, the understanding time and score, the finding Avery Bradley, who finally decides to make some shots in a big spot, attacking Lou Williams, who not only couldn't guard LeBron, that was obviously the game plan in the second half. Jordan didn't just hit the game-winning shot. That's what we go down and we do the last 5 seconds, last 15 seconds, who's most clutch. It wasn't about that. It was about Michael Jordan seemed to find a way to guard the other team's best player, to make the big steal, to make the big play, to put himself or his team in position to get a shot for the game-winning shot. Look, these weren't end-of-game scenarios like the Bucks. Giannis did not look like he was ready for that physicality. They made him into a shooter. He's clearly not a shooter as of yet. The Bucks just did not look ready for prime time in terms of their ancillary pieces, and that game wasn't close down the stretch. The Clipper game was closer, and they led for a good portion of it, but after the third quarter, the Lakers led, and it never got to being a one possession. So I'm not going to evaluate in terms of clutchness. But to those of us who grew up and lived in the Jordan era, and that was my entire childhood up until playing in college and watching him finally retire the second time, I guess, when he hit the shot against the Jazz. Those were the things that Jordan was able to do. I know LeBron didn't get the charge call. I know that he didn't even get the loose ball when he went for it on the floor. I know these, but it was the fact that he led by doing more so than by saying. He showed the desire and ability to take and make the big stop defensively. And the team played to a higher level than really their level of competency. Like I think that's I said he was the MVP on Friday, and I think that Friday and Sunday people are starting to understand why. Is he the best, most statistically dominant, even LeBron James we've ever seen? No. He's not the best version of himself physically. He's not. But like, if you would have taken a snapshot of Rondo at the start of the year, or even Rondo at the start of the game, and then watched as Rondo got better, he is the rising tide that is lifting ships. This is not a great Laker team. It's not. People picked apart their roster at the start of the season. And here they are, owners of the best record in the West. Right? They took down the Clippers, who were undefeated with their full roster. They beat the Bucks, who had the best record in the East. Granted, the Bucks beat them at their place, and the Clippers had beat them 2 out of 3. But he has the best record in the West, and I wouldn't say he has the best roster in the West, especially after Kyle Kuzma has still not lived up to his preseason building. Still hasn't kind of found his groove in what they're doing. They're still kind of a moving target as to what their bench is going to look like, although it was much more competent yesterday as they continue to tinker with it. And we'll see what the latest addition does to that when that becomes a reality. But Jordan, I don't care about the 17 years or what they did at 35. Michael Jordan at 34, when he wanted to be, was the best player on the floor every night. LeBron at times this year has not been that. He has not. He has struggled at times, not just with his teammates, but with his own age and adjusting to his own body and to playing point guard more readily, especially in important situations and what all that means. But it seems like he's figuring it out. How at this stage in his career, with this level, he's still a freak athlete in the real world. In the NBA, he's not as freaky as he used to be, because he used to be one of the 3 or 4 most athletic guys at his size, which was remarkable. He knows how to pace himself. He knows where to get on the court with his spots. He seems to find ways to have a better pace, play with better balance, to get the ball to his teammates, to help Anthony Davis play better and better as the game goes on. In both the last 2 games, he is stuck with Avery Bradley. In years past, if you would have played as poorly as Avery Bradley did early on in the season with LeBron James, LeBron would have been done with you. Just done with you. That's what he does with guys. He just on to the next. But for whatever reason, he stuck with him, and the staff stuck with him, and Avery Bradley had his best big game as a Laker last night. The takeaway is this. I could quote you chapter and verse of the Jordan moments of my lifetime, which I don't believe will ever be topped. The 6 threes in the first half against Portland, the overall dominance against Utah both times. Heck, you even go back to his first NBA Finals against the LA Lakers, because the MO of Michael Jordan was he wouldn't pass, he'd try and do it himself. Kind of the opposite of LeBron early on. And he averaged 11 assists a game in the 5-game NBA Final Series against the LA Lakers, and that was when Magic, of course, played for the Lakers. It was the changing of the guard in the NBA. So you could go from him feeding John Paxson and showing his desire to pass to him dominating Karl Malone when Karl Malone had won the MVP. That was maybe the biggest similarity, is that Friday night, LeBron wanted to guard Giannis. LeBron wanted to make a point that he was the best player on the floor. And that felt like Jordan, because if you remember, when Jordan beat Barkley in the finals, Barkley was the MVP that season. When Jordan beat Karl Malone the first time in the finals, Karl Malone was the MVP. And what Jordan wanted, it was what LeBron has achieved over the weekend, which is he wants you to walk away from that court going, I don't care if Karl Malone or Charles Barkley or Clyde Drexler win MVPs. The best player on the basketball floor is Michael Jordan. And over the weekend, you could say, I don't care whether Kawhi Leonard won the NBA Finals MVP or Giannis Antetokounmpo is the residing MVP and may well be the MVP this year in the NBA. The best player on the basketball floor was LeBron James. And that is that's what Jordan did consistently. That's what LeBron achieved this weekend. Yeah, I mean, like, I get tired of it. I understand he's been in the league a long time. I'm not going to go into the parsing how old he is with how many years he's played. It's remarkable. And maybe not making the playoffs last year not only energized him and motivated him, but also gave his body rest, which he deserved after all those finals runs in the East. It hasn't always been great this season, right? Like, he played great against the Pelicans, didn't play against Golden State, was not energized against the Memphis Grizzlies. But in the NBA, we do tend to judge you what you do in these games that matter. And while we're not going to hand the finals trophy to the Lakers just yet, still a lot of ball game left. They got to stay healthy. They're going to have to beat the Clippers in a 4-game series after fighting off 2 other teams just to get to the Clippers, and then maybe play the Bucks and have to beat them in a 7-game series as well. LeBron James left no doubt over the last 2 games against 2 of the great players in the NBA, 2 guys who have at times looked like the best players on the planet. He was the best and most important player on the floor, and his team won both those games, which is all that it's really about to begin with.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.